let's have a conversation today. I love when you're on for a lot of reasons. First of all, you are like your joy in a
Oh boy.
little furry, hairy package.
Great.
Yeah. It's like there's joy right there. You make me smile, which is always good. And laugh sometimes too. And we can have conversations because culturally we've come up, differently, different.
Yeah.
You're from Pittsburgh, raised in a family that, left Iran, Persian, battle with your own whiteness and your own, bullying and things because of your differences. And I actually didn't, so, we complement each other. So I'm watching Snowfall, which I'm going to talk about more tomorrow in my what to watch list. Snowfall, John Singleton's rest in power, John Singleton's vision of South Central LA. It's followed this young man named Franklin Saint from being the neighborhood good guy to becoming a demonically possessed, drug dealer. And I'm saying demonically possessed because what he's doing to his family and his community, and you're rooting for him still because the actor, man, is amazing. But you also know, and I contemplated not watching it this season. This is the last season. I love his Uncle Jerome and his Aunt Louie. I love his mama. I like all of the characters, but they're at war right now. And they're at war because they were put in a position to be at war. And so this season, we know previous seasons, Franklin's father was killed by the CIA, right? They fled to Cuba, his mom and dad, to get away. They followed him, his parents, to Cuba, killed his father, right? While his mother went grocery shopping or whatever. So 2 episodes dropped last night. So I'm going to talk broadly and I'm not going to spoil anything, right? But I want to ask this question because there's a scene where Franklin and his mom are having a discussion because his mother's really pissed off about losing her husband and her family and her whole community at the hands of the CIA. So she may be joining forces with Cuba, with the Cubans, with the communists, right? And she's like, Franklin, we got to take them out. And Franklin's like, the whole CIA, the American government, like, well, no, I don't think this is something we're going to be able to do. And she was like, let me tell you this. I sat waiting for your father to come back because they didn't just kill him. They like disappeared him. I knew that he would never come back. And as she watches the community literally get destroyed in a wake, and her son and her brother at the center of this infusion of crack cocaine, and all over the country, whether we're talking about Detroit, Chicago, Newark, like crack was pushed into the Black community by a government. We know about Oliver North, but we never really talk about these things, right? Oliver North and, all of the, the Iran Contra of all things, right? We're talking about Iran. So this is very, so depending on where you sit, can you be a patriot in a space where things are being done? So I was processing this because I was thinking about Assata Shakur, who's fighting against a brutal, evil, unjust system. She gets arrested and hemmed up, accused of a crime that she probably didn't commit, right? And she was about to be out, even though she beat most of the charges, the way Angela Davis beat all of the charges. And she somehow escaped prison and has been in Cuba, right? Mm-hmm. So growing up, I remember going to the post office, seeing Joanne Chesimard's name and her picture. They had the most evil picture and being shook in my little spirit. Like I was scared of this woman who looked like somebody in my family, but I was scared of her because she was on the FBI most wanted list. And they literally had her picture up at the post office. When I would go with my mom to the post office, I would see it there and be scared of this woman. Later on, my dad brings the book in, Assata, and I read the book at, I think it was about 12 or 13, got a whole different perspective on it, right? And so it depends on where you sit in terms of, so it's as an American, and I'm sitting here right now, I don't think I'd be able to sit anyplace else doing what I'm doing anyplace else in the world. Somebody's like, where else would you live? And I was like, Barbados is expensive. I don't know anybody there. Costa Rica here is nice, but like, could I have become Karen Hunter in Costa Rica? I don't know. But I know America allowed for me to be. So I'm how do you have this duality of, and I imagine all Americans, if we're being honest, if we really know the history, should have this struggle.
Yes. We've talked about it here. The hypocrisy of being American is to be American. That is the thing that we have to struggle with. My existence in this country is predicated on the CIA and MI6 interfering in Iran in their domestic policies, creating the assassination of Mossadegh when he wanted to nationalize the oil in Iran, and then progressively helping to spur the Iranian Revolution in 1979, the Islamic Revolution. Because of that, I am in America. Now, here I sit saying America needs to be the standard bearer against the regime that is in Iran today. Now, should people be like, why would you support the same country that created this displacement of you and your family? And the difference is the thing that I bring up and my mom and I talk about when I complain about America, or I talk about America and I critique America. And she says, you have choice here. Every 4 years, every 2 years, you get to vote on these people. You can actually change something. It means very little to a lot of Americans. We don't actually put a lot of faith and trust in our votes and understand how important it is. But it's really important when it doesn't really even exist. When you go to the voting booth in Iran, it doesn't really mean much, because even if your vote did count, there is still a superseding authority that can overrule all of the will that the public is asking for. So that is why I'm supportive of a very conflicted and problematic country that we live in. But at the same time, the age of consent in most states is above 9 years old. It's not like that in Iran. You can take 4 wives in Iran. You can beat a woman. You can do honor killings. These are things that are not necessarily punishable like they are in America. And for the fact of the matter is, the highest powers in the world, in the country here, are elected by the people. Of course, the Supreme Court, we appoint them, and that's already an issue, right? But at least
but even that happens because we elect a president, right?
Exactly.
So and even the levers of power that gaslight and misinform and spend a whole lot of money keeping us anesthetized either through drugs or sport. We still have choices, right?
Yes.
And so sitting here every day, I'm very clear that my job is to beat the gong, to sound the alarm, but also give people tools and weapons to navigate these spaces and bring on amazing people to talk about it. And because we need to engage in these, conversations. I had class today, and I have a very vocal student who's like, yes, well, I don't like what's going on politically, so I write my own name in. And I was like, okay, that may feel like power to you, but power looks like voting for a Lauren Boebert, who we know probably can't spell or think very well, who got a GED and is not very bright, but we know she's going to vote the way we want her to vote. And we know she's probably a trashy individual who probably loves Satan, but we're going to vote for her, even though I love Jesus, because she's going to do what I want her to do. And that's what power players do. They don't write in their own names. They vote for the people that are going to do what needs to be done. That's what they do. And she was like, I didn't think about it that way. I said, so Trump won a couple of states and then he lost by a couple of thousand votes in like a handful of states. If 1,400 people in Georgia did what you did, we would have Trump as president right now.
Yeah.
So power understands how to get it and maintain it. And it's a long game. Emotions will make you not vote or write in somebody's name because in your emotions, you're like, all of these people are the same, but they're not. I love what you said about, coming here and it's complicated, It is complicated. And the gymnastics you have to go through in your mind and your spirit I don't love this country as much as I love people. Right.
Yeah.
And that I have hope and I'm optimistic that the people can change the world because we have the power to do that. So I'm going to lean into that.
And frankly, I think it's a blessing that I have this conflict that's lived inside of me this whole time, that I have to do this kind of mental gymnastics, because I would rather be here than ignorant of the issue itself. And the story we're told in America is we're the good guys. Everyone else, they're the bad guys, or they're a good guy until they're a bad guy. And the world is so much more nuanced than that. It is so much more complicated. And this is the same problem I have with my leftist friends. They think that we can all figure this thing out and that there is a binary solution to everything. There isn't, right? And that's why, you have Masih Alinejad, the human rights activist, that goes and takes a meeting with Republican leaders, because those are the ones that are listening to her. Those are the ones that are giving her a platform. Jake Tapper is still the only liberal news commentator in any of the mainstream media places that have given her a seat to go and talk about what's happened to the Iranian people. None of these other places besides Fox News will take her. Why? Because it looks like it's Islamophobic when she talks about how the hijab is used to oppress women in Iran. It makes it seem like that liberal news outlet is against Islam, when in reality, they just don't have the minutes in their segments to talk about how complex this issue actually is.
And we should have, we need space where we understand that these sound bites and this left, right, and these panels, that this is not helping us. As a matter of fact, it's the reason why we're here, because you cannot in 2 minutes summarize what's happening in the world anywhere, right? And as I was thinking about this today, I'm like, listen, if China, who's doing trial balloons and threatening us every other day, if I'd rather suit up and go to war against China than to let them take over the country. Yeah. Ask yourself that. I'd rather suit up and go to war against Russia than to have Putin run this country. You may think things would be better, those of you who are oppressed or come from oppressed communities in America. If you think the oppression is bad now, imagine when you have no rights. And that's coming, though. It's coming if we don't vote, right? Because, again, Hitler came to power through elections. 866-801-8255. What?
And one thing, I've been also reading this great Ray Dalio book. I can't remember. It's like Principles or something like that. I think it's an updated one that he did last year. One of the things he talks about, though, is like the long-term debt cycle here is actually a national security risk, right? If you look at the amount of foreign investment that's coming into this country right now, and the amount, like Saudi Arabia, they got their hooks in us. China, they got their hooks in us. All these big players are going to get their hooks in us. And then what does that mean? Our military might was always kind of second to our economic might. And you could have an argument on which one's more important, right? But if we lose this economic superiority in the world, what are we going to do? Just kill everybody? Is that what we're going to do? We're going to use our military to just like flex against everybody else? No, it's going to be bad. So I'm not in the favor of like, let's talk about the debt. Well, the debt is too high, but it needs to be managed. And we need to tax a lot of people a lot more money that are getting away with tax avoidance, and it's too much.